I'm deeply troubled by this because I'm no fan of the Electoral College. But at the same time, if we went to just a straight popular vote system, all you'd have these presidential candidates do is fly between 6 or 8 big cities, and only voters in large urban areas would be talked to at all, and the rest of the country not at all. Now you could say, well, now we only have 8 or 10 swing states get all the attention. That's true. But when you think about what those states are, you think, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, Florida, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, Colorado, Nevada. It's sort of more or less a cross section of the country, and where it's somewhat representative of the country, and that's, I think, a lot better than a popular vote. And the thing is, then there's a variation, is this idea that let every congressional district vote independently, and you get the electoral vote for that district, and then whoever wins the state gets the other two. If you didn't have um, gerrymandering, the district lines drawn in by politicians in very partisan ways, if every state did it the way Iowa did or the way California now does it, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But now we're in a system where it's politicians picking their voters rather than voters picking their politicians, and where whichever the party is in charge, whether it's Illinois, where Democrats screwed the daylights out of Republicans, or whether it's North Carolina, where Republicans screwed the daylights out of Democrats, and this happened, all over the country. I would be against going to that system until all 50 states did a legit job of redistricting. If I could wave a magic wand and do two reforms, I would do redistricting reform, and I would do nomination reform, where in the states with party registration and closed primaries, where independents can vote in either party's primary, I think that would lead to more moderate nominees. And none of these things are silver bullets that would fix problems, but I think they would both help. In terms of the problem, the challenge that Republicans have, um, I don't. If I were Carl, and who am I to second guess what Karl Rove does? But if I were Carl, I think I would have done it and not announced it. And I don't. I would have. If sort of a super PAC sort of popped up and started going after what I call exotic candidates, that's fine. Or here's another idea: hire up some really, really good opposition researchers, and when you see a candidate from your party who you think may be unelectable, you dig up the dirt and you feed it to a reporter, not for attribution, and you cut the candidate off at the knees, and nobody needs to know that that another Republican actually fed him the stuff. I mean, it's a time-honored tradition on both sides, and you don't leave fingerprints that way. And so I wouldn't have done the announcement, the spotlight, and all of that. I'd just do it, uh, and and sometimes maybe somebody's so clean there isn't anything, and you can't kneecap them, but generally there's something, and you could kind of steer primaries one way or the other. But I have sympathy for the Republican Party leaders, because in 2010, the National Republican Senatorial Committee, they did get involved in primaries, and it backfired on them, and the Tea Party movement, it enraged them, and it was a problem. And so in 2012, they said, okay, hands off, and they were criticized for that. And I would say this is a function that the party leadership should not officially sanction, and the party campaign committee shouldn't do it. But if sort of interested Republicans, or for that matter, interested Democrats, wanted to um, educate people about the shortcomings of a particular candidate, um, you know, it's been done for as long as there have been campaigns. So that's what I've done. I wouldn't have made a big production over it, because I think it makes it an issue to do it in such a highly publicized way. First of all, I think Nate is a very, very smart guy. I could only dream of having the statistical toolkit that he's got. I think he's intellectually honest, and I love his approach. Now he he approaches it almost purely, not almost, but primarily from a science. And to me, I kind of look at it as an art and a science. And I'm not nearly as good as he is on the science side, but I've been doing it a long time, so I've kind of got the other. But to me, it's like the classic. It's like Moneyball. It's exactly the same thing. And to me, I think the sabermetrics. I think that's hugely important. But I think it's nice to have scouts too. And the best system is one that merges together. And so there's not a day goes by that I don't go on 538.com and see what Nate's saying. And but at the same time, my biggest competitor and good friend is Stu Rothenberg, who has the Rothenberg Political Report. I read his stuff avidly. When Stu and I agree, makes me feel more comfortable. When we disagree, I know there's a 50-50 chance that Stu's right. And I watched Nate very, very carefully because if he is heading in a different direction than I am, it makes me want to stop and pay attention. I'm a big fan of Nate's. And if you read his book, The Signal and the Noise, available on Amazon.com, he devotes 4 or 5 pages to the Cook Political Report. No, it's a particular treat for me to get a chance to do this because back in 1993, the first House editor of the Cook Political Report was Ben Schaffner, who had just been the editor of the Harvard Law Review and did a fabulous job. So I have a warm and fuzzy for the Harvard Political Review because of Ben and the legacy that he built, where we've had some enormously talented people that have built on what Ben built back when he did in 1994, which was that huge Republican tidal wave election. If ever I needed someone just looking at the House, it was then, and Ben did a great job. So I'm a huge fan of the Political Review. And I guess the other thing that hits me is, there are a lot of fabulous universities in this country, but this is the only place that is the critical mass of, the whole, you look at the Kennedy School complex and just say the whole world comes through here every semester. And to have, 6 leading Republicans doing a panel on the future of the Republican Party over here, and across campus, Al Gore speaking on the other side at exactly the same time, you think that's happening at Yale or Stanford or Columbia or Penn? I don't think so, with all due respect to those wonderful schools. But there's no place else that has this.